It's interesting. I have a question, but let's move on. Thank you, Eamon. We appreciate it very much. All right, folks, this leads us to viewer outrage. Will Fin Reg do more harm than good for the small investor? Here's what you're saying. Carlos from Florida. Fin Reg has already done more harm than good for the country, let alone small investors. You need only to look at the uncertainty it has caused. All right. Joining us now, Payne, president and founder of the Agenda Project. Andy Bush, public policy strategist, BMO Capital Markets and CNBC contributor. Andy, can I raise the Elizabeth Warren issue today? Big op-ed about her. She has no congressional supervisory. She was not confirmed. She is going to run all the consumer credit and mortgages in this country. What does that tell you about Fin Reg, her role, and credit?
Well, it's certainly a little bit disturbing, to say the least, and the fact that that agency or group is funded via the Federal Reserve, which means Congress can't cut off their funding or defund them to reduce their reach into the private sector. So that's a little disturbing for the Republicans who might take over Congress next quarter. But I think your listener or writer in had it exactly right as far as Fin Reg goes. It's because Congress punted on making so many of these rules to the regulators, and that has created additional uncertainty. It's like they made a law and then they really didn't make a law. So as far as small investors go, I think they're very disturbed by what happened with the flash crash, and also that there are so many rules that still have to be made and there's so many unknowns. They feel like the markets are fixed against them.
Well, then, to a certain extent, Erica, don't you need to really lay this regulation out there for public viewing so that investors can start to feel more certain about their prospects? Is it going to benefit them in any way?
Yeah, I mean, your viewer outrage is exactly right, and Andy's exactly right, that uncertainty is not good for the small investors. There's no question about that. But you've got to go back a little ways and say, well, how well did the small investor do a couple of years ago when the whole financial system almost collapsed? And I would say that's worse than uncertainty is now. And the fact of the matter is, when Congress passes laws, they then go to regulators who sort of sort through some of the details, and there are some interesting details that will be worked out that will be very helpful for small investors. But there is a period of uncertainty. But after that period of uncertainty, you have a return to certainty. And you hopefully, what this bill will do, I don't think it goes far enough, but it does return stability to a market. So we hopefully won't have the kind of crash that we had a couple of years ago. So in the long-term good, yes, definitely in the short term, we're going to have some uncertainty. But you've got to expect that when you have a crash the size of the Great Depression, and you've got to fix the problems that led to it, you know?
Andy, so does it fix the problems for the small investor? I mean, that's what Erica's saying. It's going to, in the long run, that they are better off.
Well, we'd all like to believe that, but let's face it, the SEC since the 1930s has had the oversight to eliminate fraud, and they missed Bernie Madoff. I mean, now we're asking these exact same people that are supposed to make up the rules and regulations to provide comfort. I'm a little circumspect that that's going to happen. So the fact that we have 67 studies that have to be done and 33 ongoing studies that have to be done before they can make the rules is disturbing. And then, of course, we have the stories today with the Financial Stability Oversight Council that there's a turf battle
What would
going
you like
on
to see happen?
between the FDIC
Wait, this is key.
and the
No,
Treasury.
this is key. This is absolutely key. Erica, come on. You see the Treasury Department interfering with independent regulators like the FDIC over the securitization issue. Securitizations helped blow up the system for debt and mortgages. Now, I ask you, Erica, what is the role of the Treasury? Why are they interfering with these independent agencies? Is this a flaw in the bill?
I don't think it's a flaw. You've got to let this stuff play out. I mean, one of the things that the bill does, I think, really effectively is brings more transparency to these derivatives and other complex financial instruments than we had before. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't go far enough in bringing all of those market principles to bear on that derivatives market that was a lot of the problem. But, you know, we're going to have to let that play out, and it just kind of is what it is. You know, it was horrible before. It's going to be slightly better now, and
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot, right, Andy? Because on the one hand, no one really likes the idea of more regulation, the idea of more government interference. But then on the other hand, how do you restore that trust?
Well, that's the question, really. And if their starting point is that, legislatively you should, engage the Hippocratic Oath, which is do no harm, they've really broken the rules on this. The fact, the staring elephant in the room.
I couldn't disagree more. You really think they've done more harm by actually holding people accountable for the decisions that they make with...
Let me finish, if you don't mind, I did with you. So Fannie and Freddie were not addressed. How can you feel comfortable with the central core of the problem with the financial crisis being the housing market? You haven't really addressed the major causations of it, which is those two entities backstopping all these mortgages. Now they're backstopping 95% of all mortgages, and you haven't done a darn thing about it.
Okay, so Andy makes a good point, which is, yes, Fannie and Freddie need to be dealt with. But let's be clear, Fannie and Freddie is a whole problem unto itself, and there is a lot of agreement that these organizations need to be wound down.
Yes.
So that's an agreement.
And,
but let's
we
be
haven't
clear
even started working on that one, which is terrifying.
At the heart of this crisis was derivatives, and 97% of the derivatives market was owned by 5 banks.
I disagree with your
they have begun to deal with that.
Most of the people who have studied the problem.
We got to go, guys. Thanks so much. When we come back...